okay, we could do this the easy way or the hard way. We're going to do it the hard way this week. In the Pisces neighborhood, some tendril of it now becomes a whole new species that will eventually walk onto land and become everything you've ever known. There's an interesting article going around about ant geopolitics. One thing astrology is good for is letting us know where in time we are. Pluto transits tropical Aquarius from around now for approximately the next 20 years. So we're entering a 20-year segment of time that has a lot to do very clearly with artificial intelligence. But back to ant geopolitics. Ant geopolitics are actually very interesting. There are whole countries of ants, and when their borders touch each other, they get into fights to the death. There's this mom researcher named Alison McDowell, who I'm super into. I found her through Gordon White, although they are on very different missions. Her latest video that I've been directing everyone to, that kind of sums everything up as she seems to understand it currently, is called A Tucson Labyrinth, Ants in the Age of Artifice. And she talks a lot about the ant computer. And that's referring to a type of data modeling where every user in a system is an agent that can be manipulated by placing different stimuli in different places on the map, or like directing groups of agents to different stimuli. That goes into this idea of like teaming and wu-wei, getting people into flow states, like the Navy SEALs, having a group of individuals operate as one. And this has a lot to do with how artificial intelligence is being advanced. So it's not just super smart large language models or super innovative diffusion models that can make art and music. It's not about making the model smarter. It's about then taking those out into the world and creating like emergent, a being out of multiple beings. Pluto in Aquarius, as you probably know, if you're into astrology, is going to have a lot to do with mob rule. In one way, it's power masquerading as the collective. In another way, it's groups of people organizing around a cause or a task or a sting operation. This idea, getting individual agents to do things collectively, is very interesting to people who work in technology and people who work in artificial intelligence and people who work with systems in general. And it's very interesting in relation to social media because all of us are user agents in a system, and stimuli can be planted to make people go do things. Obviously, also social media is very good at facilitating groundswells and emergent behaviors in groups. It's also good at facilitating outside agents who want to make those things happen. You can't there are not conspiracies, and there also are. And that word. Don't get me started on that word. In 20 years, when your children are writing history books, they are going to write about this thing. That's me being very sure of myself, but I guess I can't totally be sure of anything. Anyway, last week I was talking about artificial intelligence and how it is us. And I don't remember if I actually got to my point that when you're talking to an AI, you're talking to us. And a part of that is why Pluto in Aquarius is having a lot to do with AI right from the very beginning, because artificial intelligence gaining those emergent behaviors is going to come through the study of and the instigation of groups of individuals banding together to do a thing, whether that's protest the war or be 10 years old and really, really, really need glycerin-filled drunk elephant skincare and mob Sephora and mess up all the samples. These little teams that can attack. This article about ants. People who work in systems are interested in how ants work and the things you can do to stimulate ants into doing team behaviors because they're already so good at doing them anyway. And just replace those with making individual user agents in social media do behaviors because social media is already so good at facilitating those anyway, and humans are social beings. So that's part one. Ants. There's an article about ants. Mob rule is a thing. It will be a thing for the next 20 years, and it will be much more virulent and hidden in terms of the powers steering the mob, because that's what Pluto does. So that's not a conspiracy. That's Pluto. Pluto's transit of Aquarius. It has to do with AI. It has to do with mob rule. AI and mob rule are not separate things. as far as the people working on AI are concerned. Part 1, ants, mob rule. Part 2, I said this on social media a couple of weeks ago, but every time I tried to upload it to Meta's Instagram, it was cut off. And it was the beginning that was getting cut off. And I thought, oh, I'm so smart. I got it to like not cut off totally in the beginning. But I realized a few days later that this post was, the end was cut off, and the end is the best part. And it's like, in my opinion, it's the most powerful part because of like how you would have been consuming this piece of short form video. I'll perform the information for you again here, and I'll probably try to put it on social media again, and we'll see if it gets cut off. The metaverse is our new government. The metaverse is our new economy. 2010 through 2018, Uranus transited the sign of Aries. This transit marked social media's integration into our lives. So obviously there was social media before 2010, but 2010 to 2018, the selfie, social media became an extension of our social and business lives and creative lives. In about 2 years, February 21st, 2026, Saturn and Uranus will conjoin at the beginning of Aries. Saturn is authority, restrictions, obligations, prisons, systems, structures, boundaries, things you can't do because you got to do something else. Neptune is imagination, fantasy, delusion, and the blurring of the distinction between what's real and what's not real. So not just like the interplay of what's real and what's not real, the very distinction itself between what's real and what's not real. So Saturn and Neptune conjoin in Aries, where Uranus just finished up giving us social media, revolutionizing our identities, the way that we perform our identities, the way that we perceive our own identities. So it revolutionized our relationship with ourselves and the performance of our identities, the way we exert our identities or like prove we are who we are. Uranus just came through and did that. So in the same neighborhood, Saturn, authority, structure, etc., and Neptune, fantasy, imagination, real and not real, will conjoin in Aries. There's a recurring theme with Saturn and Neptune of imaging. Things like Photoshop, Technicolor, Disney, I think. So there's that. What is the imaging signature doing? Authority and fantasy, restrictions, real and not real. Saturn makes things real, and Neptune dissolves the distinction between what's real and not real. What are those two characters doing in this neighborhood about the exertion of self? And clearly has something to do with social media's integration into our lives. The metaverse is our new economy. The metaverse is our new government. The metaverse is social media. It's very interesting that Meta cut off the end of my video where I say the metaverse is social media. The metaverse is social media. The metaverse is our new economy. The metaverse is our new government. The metaverse is social media. Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Back to ants and AI and Pluto and Aquarius. There's an opportunity for a beneficial connection between this ant, computer, AI, emergent, hive mind, creation, and the metaverse is our new government, our new economy, and surprise, it's social media. The metaverse is social media. The big social media company changed its name to Meta. And everybody was like, that makes no sense. Now it makes perfect sense. Something interesting that happened when Saturn conjoined Neptune in the 50s is MK Ultra apparently began. So what we know about that is a government program of controlling minds. It was like a mind control program where they used drugs like LSD to control people's minds and I guess specifically to get people to tell the truth, do the truth serum thing. And that eventually led to this book, Programming and Metaprogramming in the Human Biocomputer. In this book, he explains exactly what happens in your mind. He explains like the mechanism of what happens in your mind, like the feeling of oneness you get from things like LSD. He explains what that is, like an extensive and very interesting book on exactly what the title is, Programming and Metaprogramming in the Human Biocomputer. So to create artificial intelligence, we will be programmed, and the metaverse is our new economy, and the metaverse is our new government. The metaverse is social media. The power structure doesn't have to be the government. Mind control, secretive mind control, flow states and teaming as they relate to creation by humans of emergent intelligence. Oh, And then the last thing is, one thing that is done to get people to like form these groups is divisiveness. Getting like hot button issues where two sides are very like at each other's throats. One thing I can think of, because it's also in the news, is obesity. There's a headline that says world obesity tops 1 billion. I'm sharing this in terms of divisiveness because there's a divisiveness around it. I don't care. I don't care if obesity tops 1 billion because if I cared, then I would be fat phobic. But since I don't care, now I'm some kind of callous, cold, uncaring about people's health. Anyway, you can see how that's like a divisive topic. It's like a hot button issue. Because if you care about it, you're fat phobic. If you don't care, then how could you not care? Anyway, it's not the only one. This headline was in the news this week, obviously to keep that debate raging. I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything on purpose. Anyway, there are other issues like this. There's Democrat, Republican, right, left, pro-life and pro-choice, compliance with medical treatment versus non-compliance with medical treatment. See how I'm saying it because it's that divisive. There's climate change versus climate change deniers. There's flat earthers versus the world is round. I'm an astrologer. The world has to be round. But these issues, you can't like not weigh in and pick a side. And when you get a strong enough, like a passionate enough hive mind, that can be directed. Okay, so to recap, teaming, emergent hive mind, mob rule, which comes from divisiveness, which is like authority figures want to divide us because then we will bicker with each other. Divisiveness becomes mob rule, becomes the singularity. I'm not kidding. And the metaverse is our new government, our new economy, and it's social media. That's my guide to the world for the next 20 years. In an incredible technological breakthrough, Doom is now playable on a lawnmower. This cutting-edge technology allows you to mow your lawn while mowing down demons. So if you don't want to manicure your lawn, now you can rage against the forces of hell. Tyler Perry saw OpenAI's Sora, and he had an $800 million studio overhaul plan that he is now not doing. Also, there's apparently something called Nightshade, where you can poison your art data so that generative AI can't vacuum it up into its brain. NVIDIA just hit a $2 trillion valuation. And also they have a chatbot that they're calling RTX, and you can run it locally. It's free. That makes me wonder, like, how surveillance-y, how much is this phoning home? It makes me think of VS Code, which I think is Microsoft. Amazing, beautiful text editor for coding, and it's just a surveillance program. Also, Adobe is this. You can't escape it. So NVIDIA wants to get inside your computer. Nothing wrong with that. Many are already inside your computer anyway. Your computer gets around. And then the CEO of NVIDIA is also saying that kids don't need to learn to code. Where children are being like maneuvered into in terms of education is kind of like, it's like getting a little bit away from literacy and more around this like creative, expressive mode of expression. Like, how do you feel today? And you choose a color or an emoji. And he's saying that technology is available to everyone now. So now all you need is domain expertise, and the computer can do everything for you. Just like I don't need to know how to use Photoshop anymore. I can just engineer a prompt. I just need to be a writer, and I need to know what I want to see, and I can create an image. Also, he's explicitly named what appear to be employment sectors that he thinks are most important moving forward. And that's biology, education, manufacturing, and farming. So you're either going to be in biotech, or you're going to be a teacher, or you're going to work in manufacturing, or you're going to be a farmer. And none of those are like the bucolic, interesting, charming versions. They're the dystopian nightmare versions where like you are working in manufacturing, but you live in Brazil and you're operating robot hands that are manufacturing something in Sweden. Or you live in Indiana and you're cleaning a hotel room as a robot in Portugal. A 2-year-old humanoid robot startup called Figure is the darling of the humanoid robot world. Its investors include Microsoft, Amazon, Intel, NVIDIA, OpenAI, Jeff Bezos' personal investment firm also. And it wants to put these in your homes and workplaces. And Figure has so far raised $675 million, which seems like chump change compared to NVIDIA's valuation. Also, it can run Doom. Fun fact, OpenAI originally was trying to build humanoid robots stuff. And then it decided to direct all of its energy into being a chatbot. There's a whole Google Gemini backlash around it was making historically inaccurate images, offensive images, and things that had to do with diversity, and it was doing a bad job at that. And that's very hyped in the media. However, I used Gemini and ChatGPT simultaneously this week for a creative, iterative, concepting process. And Gemini did way better, much more of a pleasure to work with. Its ideas were way more interesting. ChatGPT would just kind of spit out something useful, still got really useful stuff. But Gemini would kind of go all the way and would be really creative. And then at the end, it would be like, well, let me know if you want me to take this further. And I would be like, yes, take it further. Thank you. So this is doing exactly, now with a chatbot and a subscription to Stable Diffusion, those things can do the job I did making 6 figures as an associate creative director. That was a long time ago. Everybody got mad at me for quitting. But I was also really bratty and hated it. So 2013. So now robots can literally do my job. I don't need to hire creative people. I don't need to field applicants to see who has a mind that melds with mine. Now, I don't need to hire someone to come up with ideas and imagery that I can then refine. I can do that myself now with a chatbot and a subscription to a really good diffusion model. And on that note, there are a lot of articles going around about how tech interviews are getting out of control, people being asked to build an app within the interview, or a more widespread culture of people getting ghosted, just interview processes start and they go a while and then either the applicant or the company hiring just disappear. And also there's fake job listings are apparently a thing. I guess it has something to do with the economy being able to say that there are lots of jobs available might not be everything it's cracked up to be, especially because of all the layoffs I mentioned last week. Large numbers of people are going into the unemployed force. So that's also very Pluto and Aquarius, as I mentioned last week, because instead of having jobs, everybody's going to try to make it as a creator. So IBM has told its staff that if you would like to, quote, volunteer for redundancy, you can do that. So volunteer to be fired, to be laid off. This round of layoffs is not being called financial, it's being called, and I quote, transformative. And IBM apparently refers to layoffs within the company as the resource action. I haven't heard a whole lot about Watson recently, but I did once hear someone talking about Watson in 2016 saying that the growth edge that Watson was meeting in 2016 was recognizing emotions in faces and in the subtleties of facial expressions. So reading faces, 2016. Fact check. The World Economic Forum does not have, this is from Reuters. Fact check. The World Economic Forum does not have a stated goal to have people own nothing by 2030. The WEF does not have a stated goal to remove everyone's private property by 2030. As addressed in previous Reuters fact checks, these claims likely originated from a WEF social media video from 2016 that stated 8 predictions about the world in 2030, including you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. What you want, you'll rent, and it'll be delivered by drone. Wow, I think so. The next article I was going to read the headline of was from a World Economic Forum section of Forbes. And it's gone. It's been taken down. But it did say, it's 2030, I own nothing, and I'm happy. And it was, by the World Economic Forum. Anyway, this, World Economic Forum bad, they're the bad guys. That is a part of the divisiveness to get you on a team. So Hewlett-Packard wants you to pay up to $36 a month to rent a printer. Subscription prices range from $6.99 a month. And the priciest plan includes an HP OfficeJet and 700 printed pages for $35.99 per month. And the subscription's terms of service note that the service doesn't cover damage or failure caused by use of non-HP media supplies, obviously. And they're going to monitor all your printing activities. So they'll know everything you print. They want 2-year subscriber commitments. And they'll charge up to $270 if you cancel early. But this is just a little bit like the Wendy's we're going to do surge pricing. Instead, they're we're not going to do surge pricing. We invested in digital menus to offer discounts to our customers. Oh, and then, so as I've been mentioning, video after video, great dispossession, UBIs, the metaverse is our new government economy, and the metaverse is social media. It will be governed by artificial intelligence. And so then you'll be compelled to do things for your UBI because there are no jobs. So you'll be controlled by blockchain-based permission. Watch the blockchain video if you haven't already. It's happening. So you gotta do your best to position yourself strategically. No amount of protesting. There's no one you can vote in that's gonna make this not happen. It's happening. TurboTax and H&R Block are slipping in these like casual statements about like, hey, we need your data so we can advertise to you later now that we know everything about you. And that was a headline because like privacy stuff is a headline and it's like meant to, it's not like, yeah, it's meant to outrage you, but it's also meant to get you used to it. Intuit owns MailChimp. So they own TurboTax, QuickBooks, Credit Karma, something else, and MailChimp. So I don't want the tax people reading my weird emails. Do you get my weird emails? You can sign up for them at voyage.earth or hellington.net. They're different from these videos, they're different from social media, and they're different from any other emails in your inbox. Intuit owns MailChimp, and MailChimp is trying to make e-commerce and landing pages and websites and everything you sold, and then that gets ported into QuickBooks, and then you do your taxes. And so then Intuit will know everything about your business. So I think it was Cardinal Richelieu during the French Revolution who said, give me 10 lines written by an honest man and I will give you the evidence to hang him with. California approved robo-taxis in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So there was an article about the sun launching huge solar flares this week, and there's the whole AT&T thing that might have been solar flares, or I think they actually gave a different explanation, but definitely in the news. So the sun is doing solar flares to get you used to the idea. Kidding. Switzerland called on the UN to explore the possibility of solar geoengineering. What could go wrong? From The Guardian, the Swiss proposal submitted to the United Nations Environment Assembly that begins next week in Nairobi focuses on solar radiation modification, SRM. This is a technique that aims to mimic the effect of a large volcanic eruption by filling the atmosphere with sulfur dioxide particles that reflect part of the sun's heat and light back into space. Research is necessary to ensure multilateral oversight of emerging planet-altering technologies which might otherwise be developed and tested in isolation by powerful governments or billionaire individuals. And then also, it could potentially be one of those divisive things that's like, don't do the geoengineering, where other people are like, we're gonna do it. This is a week of jolts and zaps. Monday might be a little bit disorienting. The moon, it starts out with the moon squaring Neptune. Mercury in Pisces sextiles Uranus in Taurus. Things that are supposed to happen might not happen. There might be a weird message written on a cake, but the second half of the day is a little more grounded with the moon moving into Capricorn. So then you can make new plans. And Monday is a little bit of foreshadowing for later in the week because we have other aspects with Uranus. The messenger, Mercury, might deliver some interesting information that prepares you for that or points you to what things later in the week are going to be about. Tuesday makes me think of the quote, Wallace Stevens, after the final no, there comes a yes, and on that yes, the future of the world depends. So nowadays when the sun hits Saturn, it then hits Jupiter. On Tuesday, we're coming off of the moon squaring Saturn last Sunday, March 3rd. So Tuesday starts with the moon sextiling Saturn, which is a little more beneficial, or it has the potential to be beneficial if you want to do some Saturning. And then the moon trines Jupiter. And the only other aspects on Tuesday are the moon sextiling the sun and trining Uranus. It feels like an energetic, uplifting day, Tuesday. The first part of Wednesday is thinky and dreamy. The moon makes a sextile to Mercury and then Neptune. So Mercury is fallen, and with Neptune, all your communications are art till the end of the week. Any information you want to convey, make it art. If you have to be precise about something, now's not the time. It's going to take you 4 times as long. But this is good. This is the quality of the time. So if you have to do something precise, embrace either the journey that it's going to just take a really, really long time to get it right, or embrace different tools and means of communicating and figuring out. And if you need to get a package somewhere on time, you might have to be resigned to the fact that it might not get there in time, or you might not get there in time, and it's going to lead you to the right place, even if you find yourself in the wrong place for a while. That's the beauty of this voyage. So the first part of Wednesday is Impressionist Painting Annual Report. The second half of Wednesday is Total Recall, sci-fi movie. You're connected to the cryo chamber and you're going to the future. Thursday has a kind of like a Tuesday essence. Tuesday and Thursday are like your power days. So on Thursday, the moon squares Jupiter and conjoins Mars. More powerful and might give power to arguments, possibly. It's vigorous. Thursday is vigorous, for better or for worse. And Thursday and Friday both have a little bit of a preview of Mars squaring Uranus on Saturday. So look at Thursday and Friday for things that might really go down on Saturday, or since Mars is applying to Uranus, completes that aspect in the middle of Saturday. The stuff I say about Mars-Uranus might happen on Thursday or Friday. The moon is the activator in astrology. The moon conjoins Venus in Aquarius on Friday also. So the Aquarius stuff that moved forth on Thursday when the moon was conjoining Mars, you might get some sort of payoff. And maybe that's like a social payoff or relational or otherworldly space age high-tech art or luxury. Friday in the afternoon, evening, the moon moves into Pisces, which lays the scene for the dark moon in Pisces on Sunday. So the moon's in Pisces for the second half of the third of Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday, the moon conjoins Saturn on Saturn's day and sextiles Jupiter. So a little bit of a mirror of Tuesday. And after the final no, there is a yes. And it is on this yes that the future of the world depends. So in the afternoon on Saturday, Mars squares Uranus. For some reason, I keep thinking, what a video. Like there's going to be a piece of media. I know that Mars and Uranus don't necessarily speak to media, but maybe something Mars-Uranus-y. I don't know. When I was writing this, that's not me doing astrology. That's me mixing in my own intuitive special sauce. So Mars and Uranus are not the same at all, but they share some qualities of like change the situation. Venus wants to like maintain the situation, the relationship, whereas Mars wants to cut it, sever it, stop it, wants to get the out of here. And Uranus is just like beams down a whole other, you're in another dimension. So they're both very disruptive. And the square is the aspect that relates to Mars. So the square aspect is very disruptive. The signs that Mars, from which Mars and Uranus are squaring, they're fixed signs. Fixed signs want to keep things going. They want to maintain things and manage things. So this could be particularly disruptive because we have two signs that like to keep things going, and then these disruptive planets making a disruptive aspect. Maybe it all cancels itself out. And they're also in the middle of fixed signs, so like the fixed decan of the fixed signs, these like disruption planets making the disruption signature. And Mars has the upper hand here, so there's like a judgmentalness, a harshness, so like a science law, some enforcement of science or rules or ideas. It's Mars and fixed Aquarius, so I get like enforcement of ideas, the letter of the law. And Uranus is in Taurus, so it's being a Taurus creature, like it's disrupting the area, the neighborhood of Taurus, regular things. Taurus likes regularity, to maintain what time you eat, when you go to sleep, the sunrise and sunset, the flow of the seasons. But also, Uranus could also be being rebelliously consistent with all those things because we live in a world that is dead. It's fluorescent lights, it's flashing video mega graphics, it's flatlining in terms of our relationship with light, which is so terrible for our health. Uranus in Taurus could be being like rebelliously Taurian, rising with the sun, going to sleep when the sun goes down. Mars might have the upper hand, but Uranus is like an outer planet and about unexpected things. I don't know who's going to win this battle. And it could be, since they're both so fixed and so disruptive, just both sides participating in a whole new situation. We create a new normal through an impasse. Kind of like when Saturn was squaring Uranus from Aquarius in 2021. There was a very big issue that a lot of people now have agreed to disagree on. And that's our new normal, through an impasse, through two entities making a disruptive signature in the fixed signs. Just like, we agree to disagree. Mars in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus, which is material, can be traditional in a way. Like Capricorn is the earth sign that's very, very about time and tradition. But Taurus is also often like made fun of lovingly as basic, which can be really, really so good. Food should be basic. Cook your meat with salt and pepper. It doesn't have to be like gastronomy, art, science, your meat turned into a foam sculpture. Like, it doesn't need to be that. Food should be basic. And that's why Taurus being basic is good. When you want comfort food, you want basics. You want a grilled cheese sandwich. You don't want fusion cuisine. Cool, brain computer. You don't want fusion cuisine. There's a scene in the movie Demolition Man. He is a policeman, and I think he gets transported to the future, and he's talking, but he says like bad words, and this machine next to him prints out like a citation. By the way, the metaverse is our new government. The metaverse is our new economy. The metaverse is social media, private, corporate, artificial intelligence governance. He gets a citation for saying a bad word, and he goes to the bathroom and there's no toilet paper. You have to use this like elaborate bidet butt rinser, butt dryer thing. And so he goes over to the citation machine and he curses it out and gets a handful of citations to use as toilet paper. That's Mars in Aquarius squaring Uranus and Taurus. The rebellion is, I'm gonna say machine so that I can get tickets to wipe, because it also makes me think of an Idiocracy, Mars in Aquarius squaring Uranus and Taurus. It's like the year 2500 or something. In Carl's Jr., the fast food restaurant, their new slogan in the future is you, I'm eating. And it's also Figure, the humanoid robotics startup. Okay, we'll make it into a man. We'll put it into this basic shape so that you will be okay with it. Because we can't have the creepy Boston Robotics robot dog cleaning your hotel room. We're entering the future and there will be a lot of resistance, but there's nothing you can do about it. You can make it difficult. We could do this the easy way or the hard way, and we're going to do it the hard way this week. So the sun also sextiles Uranus. So we have a lot of Uranus stuff this week. And it's the sun's annual closing sextile with Uranus. The next traditional aspect the sun will make with Uranus is the conjunction. So we're closing a cycle of like, what did you bring back from the future? You brought back souvenirs from the future and now you're distributing them out. Or what acts of rebellion or innovation did you commit this year that you can now take in to yourself, like use as a part of the supervision of yourself? And Saturday night, Mercury moves into Aries. You know who had Mercury in Aries? Florence Nightingale. Have you ever read any of her books? She does not mince words. Mercury is going to be in Aries until May, so for the next couple of months, which we'll talk about later. It's going to go retrograde in this sign, so whatever part of your chart Aries is, that's going to have a whole reevaluation in the form of a comedy of errors, perhaps. Sunday, the dark moon in Pisces. Basically, Saturday night is going to be like the dark moon waning down. February 19th, 2023 was last year's dark moon in Pisces, and whatever started then or around then built up to a like crescendo of energy. That was the full moon in Pisces, August 30th, 2023. And now all that energy has wound down and we begin again. So we'll be building up to the full moon in Pisces, September 17th, 2024. And that will be a lunar eclipse on the North Node. What's happening now in the neighborhood of Pisces is going to shift and be strange and be amplified, possibly exaggerated in the coming year and a half or so, starting September 17th, 2024. And this dark moon is sextile Uranus, so it gets like a little gentle jolt as a closing. And a dark moon at the very end of Pisces, it could be like a happy ending. This is like happy ending neighborhood. A way that it could be disappointing is like your vision of how things should go was more grand than could be made real at this time. So that's a way that it could be like inverted. Maybe your expectations were too out there or too idealized, or maybe you didn't do the things make that happen at this time, but now we're going to start again. And in the cycle of the water signs, where Cancer is like the first water sign, Scorpio is like the middle water sign, and Pisces is the mutable, the last water sign. Pisces is like the light at the end of the tunnel. And happy endings are the best, the most magical setup for a new beginning. People ride off into the sunset. That's a beginning. This might mark with the sextile to Uranus. It might, perhaps you're able to move past some restrictions. Dark moon, starting over, laying foundations. You may have resolved some limitations this time that will make the next cycle easier or more advanced or something. In the area of life, that is Pisces in your chart. Because remember all the stuff that happened last week in the realm of Pisces? There were a lot of like great meetings of authority and messages being conveyed, or deliveries or travels. This dark moon takes all of that into account. So remembering that in the beginning there was the word. All of these things happening in the Pisces neighborhood, some tendril of it now becomes a whole new species that will eventually walk onto land and become everything you've ever known. And Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, but we have Saturn transiting Pisces right now. It can be both an area of life where you can feel a sense of belonging naturally, but also lately, perhaps you can only feel that sense of belonging as long as you fulfill your responsibility to yourself or others, or to whatever needs your attention in that part of life. And this might not be you, like these characters. Every planet in your chart has something to do with an area of life also. So it's like, it's several parts of your life concentrated in the Pisces neighborhood. And depending on what year you're in and what house is activated, house and planet is activated for you this year, one of those planets might be more like main character than the other. Saturn in Pisces, it's making the more like airy-fairy parts of Pisces more grounded and real. And in light of all the Aquarius, Taurus tension, the nascent metaverse that everyone says it's dead, but it's being built, we can remember that we're navigating the multiverse as a person. We're not just a user agent. And in Pisces, we can take care of our wholeness. It's a mutable sign and therefore a double-bodied sign, but it's about this interplay. You are a human person. You are a body, mind, and a heart mind, and you are also a spiritual entity. Whether or not you quote-unquote believe in that, there's nothing to believe in. There is this facility, this part of life that you can acknowledge or not, but it doesn't really have anything to do with belief. It's totally there. And you might have been neglecting some part of your humanity, the physical, the heart and mind, or the spiritual component. When you incorporate the seen and the unseen in your own being, you can access the universe. In yoga and tantric traditions, there's the idea that the body is a diagram of the entire universe, and then your face and the palms of your hands are diagrams of, and the soles of your feet are diagrams of your entire body, and it's just turtles all the way down. Pisces can get really out there when all of these things are being acknowledged and used. Like how they say we only use like 10% of our brain. That's like the potential that Pisces has, and why planets in Pisces and very Piscean people can seem a little spacey, because there's just like a lot going on. 24/7 galaxy brain. Also on Sunday at 2 a.m., so Saturday night, 2 a.m. 2 a.m. becomes 3 p.m. if you live in the United States in a place that they do the time changey thing. Also on Sunday, Mercury, now in Aries, is doing the hard-hitting journalism, being the reporter and talking to Pluto in Aquarius. So everything I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the metaverse is our new government, our new economy. The metaverse is social media. Like when you're scrolling social media, that's the metaverse. AI and the hive mind and teaming and the emergent machine consciousness. And also the moon goes into Aries. So we have this whole constellation around those themes and the exertion of ourself. The metaverse signature, early Aries pinging Pluto and Aquarius, where then the moon sextiles Pluto and conjoins Mercury. What a week. This is it. You have 10 months. And you should get my emails. They're unlike any other emails available. And your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls.